Hello everyone. So imagine rethinking tomorrow. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. So what does that look like? What do small acts look like? So that can mean helping somebody, whether it's through entrepreneurship, that can mean helping through somebody, whether it's through business, and it can also mean helping through other people through acts of kindness and paying it forward. So what I want to talk to you about today is something that happened to me personally. So a few years ago, a number of years ago, on a Friday night, I decided to sign up for Feed in terms of serving food to others and those unfortunate or people who just needed food. So by the time the Feed came, it was a Friday night. It'd been a long week. I travelled a lot with my work, and I really didn't want to do it, I'll be honest with you. It was raining, it was cold, and I thought, oh my God, what have I signed up to? But then, I thought, I must fulfill this, I must go and show up and do this. So I turned up. And while I was at this Feed, I discovered something. There was people queuing up, they were lining up, and they were ready to kind of start the Feed from starting. I was handed a high-vis jacket, I put it on, and I sort of lined up and thought, what's my duties today? So then the food arrived, the hot food arrived, and there was samosas, and then there was hot pasta, and there was hot tea. And all of a sudden, the people who were in the queue that are waiting came to life, they started buzzing, and they started talking to each other. So what I realized was this food that was coming out was called langar. Langar means communal kitchen with no objection, no judgment, a communal kitchen. So then the act of serving the food is called seva. Seva meaning selfless service. And I thought, what a lovely, lovely concept. How lovely does this sound? So then the people started coming up and having food. We was handing them a bag and handing them food, and they were walking past, and then they were conversing with us on the other side of this table. They were saying, thank you very much. God bless you. This is really nice. This is really good. And I thought, oh God, like they're actually talking to us as well. This is really nice. So I left that place, and I went home, and I genuinely felt joy. Something that felt like I didn't want to start it, I didn't want to do it. I thought, what's just happened there? I genuinely felt joy. But what was also interesting was the people who were receiving the food felt joy, but people who were giving out the food and organised the feed also felt joy. So there's something going on here, what's going on? So a few weeks later, I thought, I quite like that. I'm going to try and do it again. Spoke to the organisation, and I rang them up and said, look, 3 little words, can I help? And they genuinely said to me, we're struggling for donations, we're struggling for regular volunteers, and we're really struggling for funding. And I thought for a second, okay, what can I do? So I started hassling my friends, hassling my neighbours, hassling my family, and saying, listen, there's this really nice feed you can join. Yes, it's on a Friday night. Yes, it's at 5:30. Yes, it's in the evening. But honestly, you'll feel better for the end of it. They looked at me as if I was mad. Anyway, so I also realised that large organisations have something called CSR, Community Social Responsibility Days. And this is when they give their staff 3 days to go and do service and go and do giving. I thought maybe there's something I can tap into my organisation here, because people always came up to me and said, I'm really struggling to use my CSR days. So I thought about that. And then there's also fundraising. How could we get funds raised? So I spoke to the organisation. I said, give me 1 day. I know, I haven't tested it, but please give me 1 day. They gave me the first Friday of every month. So first Friday of every month became Pam Sheemar's Homeless Feed Day, or Feed Day. Anyway, didn't know where to start, spoke to loads of people, and then all of a sudden, I started inspiring people with, this is what it looks like, this is what it might sound like, please come along, come and trust me, come and do the feed with me. And then something really magical happened. The next month, a group of people went with me, including my family, and they took a photo. And they shared that photo on social media saying, look where I am, it feels great to be here, come and join me. Then another thing happened. They brought more people, which was really lovely. So the next month, I already had the next feed, 12 or 15 people who were going to do the feed with me, already lined up. Then something magical happened again. The next month, they also bought donations, and they also donated money. They went into cake bake or cake sale and raised funds for that. So when we think about rethinking tomorrow, if you can help someone feel a little bit better, then why shouldn't we do that more? There's also something else that happened. While I was there, I started seeing the same regular people who were at this feed. And one of the gentlemen, a shy gentleman, and he stands at the back. He politely waves at me, and then he moves to one side. And then as he queues up and comes for his food, I can see him holding his cup of tea, and it's cold, and it's one of those days when you're holding a cup of tea and the steam comes up, and you can see the steam in the dark. He came over to me, leant in, he said, "Thank you very much, Pam." I didn't realise he even knew my name, and I said, "What's your name?" He said, "My name's Richard." So every month that happened, every month he'd lean over and say, "Thank you very much, Pam." And I'd say, "Nice to see you, Richard. Thank you for coming. I'll see you again next time." Then there's also Vince. So Vince was another gentleman, and Vince actually had a dog called Vibes, and Vince and Vibes always came to the feed, coincidentally. So Vince and Vibes always came to the feed. And then I started seeing Vince more and more around town as well. And my work team really sometimes laugh at me for this, because I will always, no matter where he is, say, "Vince, what are you doing today? What are you here today? What are you doing?" So then there's another act of paying it forward. What I didn't realise what was happening was I was actually giving him company, and rather than being judged, he was having someone to talk to. And that's another way of paying it forward. So by the end of this time, a few years passed, and 10 years later, every single month, I'm still doing this feed. And now hundreds of people, in fact, over 2,000 colleagues, friends and family have done this feed. We've managed to raise over £60,000 for this charity, for this feed, for whatever they want to use it for. Remember, it's no judgment, no malice, no thought. It goes to the feed. There's one experience where there's a lady coming round, and she came with a trolley to the feed, and she'd walk around, and one of the people who were giving the food, we call them the service, people doing the seva, said, "Well, she's been around 6 times. Like, why is she coming around? She doesn't need around six lots of crisps. Why is she coming around?" And I said, "Remember, you're here for no judgment. There must be something going on with her. Why is she coming around 6 times?" What she didn't know is that that lady looked after her grandchildren. And every evening, she would take that food and give that to her grandchildren. She didn't have the heart to tell her daughters, whose children she looked after, that she didn't have the money or the funds to look after the feed. But she was obliged to look after these children. So without judgment, without fear, no favour, think about what you're there to pay it forward. And how does that make you feel? So did you know that 27% of the population actually did some volunteering in 2002? And that sounds really amazing, right? 27%, that's a quarter of the population. And that sounds really, really great. So think about all those people that they're inspiring, and then they're carrying it forward and paying it forward. That's absolutely magical, and it sounds really, really great. But I just want to turn it around a bit. Where's the size of the opportunity? So 27% are doing the feed. How many more can we inspire to make that 27% to 50% or even higher? So there's a question I want to leave with you in rethinking tomorrow. Do you know what I said earlier? That actually doing the feed made me really, really feel actually positive and happy and genuinely joy. What I didn't realise was there's actually neuroscience behind this. So did you know that when you do the act of giving, whether you're giving someone a compliment, whether you're doing something good, whether you're coaching or mentoring, helping a business grow, whether you're serving food, or even helping someone, as I explained at the homeless feed or the feed, it actually gives you I call them happy dolphins. So it releases something called dopamine, and it also releases something called oxytocin. This actually gives us joy. So actually, if you think about it, the act of selfless giving, the act of seva, is actually something our bodies are wired to do. I remember happy dolphins. You're probably wondering, actually, I'm hoping by now you're probably wondering, how can I get involved? What can I do? And what barriers do I have? The biggest barrier might be time, or sometimes often what I found in speaking to people was, what is the barriers in terms of, what can I actually do? Where can I add value? Where can I pay it forward? Where can I help others? So I'm just sharing a few examples of things that I've done, I'm doing and have done in the past. So the photo in the corner, that's taken at the pandemic. So I've got a screen, that's me as a magistrate. So I sit in magistrate's court, often on Saturday actually, and I generally do send people to prison. But there's a lot of good in terms of being a magistrate, because you're helping and relay good judgment, have good decisions, and you're helping people generally make better way of their lives. When you're a magistrate, you come across people who are bad, mad, or sad, and how are you going to make a difference to their life? And you can pay that forward. Other opportunities are school governors, speaking on advisory boards, sitting in meetings. There's lots of ways that you can pay it forward. The photo that you can see there is at the feed. You can see the smiles on their faces, and that's actually my entrepreneurs who joined me with the feed in terms of serving food and helping. And even though it's dark and it's about to rain and it's cold and you can see how cold it is, they've got lovely smiling faces there. So I ask you, is that something you can do? Is that something you can pay forward? The bottom corner is some of the donations that were given, and you can see from the number plate on the car, if you look really closely, that's taken about 10 years ago. So that's some of the entrepreneurs and some of my friends and colleagues who actually went out and did a mountain climb, raised money, and then raised the money to then provide the food for the feed and for other donations as well. So that's something you could think about in terms of how can you do that. And if you're really, really brave, as I did with my colleague Kim, walk on hot coals and raise some money. So again, if we're thinking about tomorrow, if we're thinking about a better future, how can we inspire? If one person inspires somebody else and that person inspires somebody else and it brings you joy and makes you happy, why are we not doing more of this? So I'm going to leave you with the thought that I started with. What if we built a world that started with giving, with a place of giving rather than a place of receiving first? Too often in the world we think it's transactional. Too often in the world we think you do this for me and I'll do it back for you. But what if we started with a place of how can I help? 3 little words, can I help? What is that going to open up for that person and who can you inspire? Thank you.